Welcome to this lecture on creating a popover effect using the popover widget in iBooks Author. So let's start by talking about what a popover is. Essentially, a popover is a small overlay that opens when the reader clicks or taps on a popover image in your book. Now let's see how this works. So we're going to go to the second page of our book, which is just the general introduction to New York City. We've got a nice picture of the Statue of Liberty. And maybe we want to add a little popover where somebody taps on the screen and they get more information about the Statue of Liberty. So one way we can do this is by adding the popover widget, which we can access from the widget pop-up. And we'll just go ahead and select that, and you can see what's been added to our page, which is basically a placeholder for an image that we can add, and then the text that we want to include here. So we'll go ahead and just put this right over here, and I'm going to open up the pop-up effect folder, which is folder number 13 in your exercise files, and you can select that PNG file that I've got selected here. It's the information icon. I'm just going to drag and drop it onto the image, and you can see that it's gone ahead and brought it in. Now this happens to be a PNG file that has some transparency, so you can see that it automatically allows for the text to wrap around it, which is kind of nice. Now what I want to do is, actually maybe that's a little too large, make that a little smaller, and now what we want to do is actually put in the text that will appear. So if I double click on my popover image, I get my popover text, and I do have some text here on the Statue of Liberty, which we're going to copy and paste. Of course, you can also add an image here if you want to. So in my case, I do have an image of the Statue of Liberty. It happens to be the exact same image that we were using before, or very similar anyway. And I can drop it in, resize it however I want. You can see that I can also resize the popover that is created. So lots of great flexibility here that we can use. So that's one way that you can add a popover. But just remember that the information popover that we're using has the image. We're going to create another popover next, because sometimes you don't actually want to have a placeholder. You might want to just have the image like we do here, and you want that to be the popover image, or maybe you even have some text that you want to create a popover for. And it's not, you can certainly do it using things like the glossary, but the popover widget can be manipulated to serve this purpose as well. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to go ahead and add the popover widget. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to place that graphic and overlay it on top of the Statue of Liberty. Now you'll notice when I'm trying to resize it, it's keeping the proportions, which is not what I want. So I'll go to my metrics inspector, select constrained proportions or deselect constrained proportions, and we'll go ahead and just lay it on top of here. Okay, so that looks like it's kind of covering up the Statue of Liberty. What I also want to do is in the wrap inspector, I'm going to make this floating and say that this object doesn't actually cause any wrap. So there you have it. Now, of course, it's still obscuring the image underneath. So we'll go to our graphic inspector and reduce the opacity down to 0. So the graphic is still there, it's just that it's completely transparent. Now if we double click on here, we can add our text. This time the text that we're going to add, it's the same text, we just won't include the image, so we can distinguish between the two. And that's it. Now if somebody taps here, they're going to see a different pop-up. When they tap here, they're going to see a different pop-up. Now, of course, you could, if you wanted to, create a popover that is sitting over on top of some text. So again, just get rid of the constrained proportions. Now you're making it much, much smaller, and you're getting rid of the wrapping. You might want to make floating here. And now if I just place it over the New York Stock Exchange, for example, I could, again, go to my graphic inspector, reduce the opacity, and type in information on the New York Stock Exchange. Okay, so that's just 3 ways that we've added a popover. One is using a visible image, and one is overlaid on top of another image, and the third one is overlaid on top of text. Now remember that we could have had one large image, and then you could have put popovers on top of that larger image using the technique that we've just covered. So let's go ahead and just preview. I'm going to preview this section only, so it'll go a little bit quicker. Okay, and here is the book opened up in iBooks on the Mac. So now if I tap on the information button, you can see that it brings up that popover with the image. If I tap on the Statue of Liberty, it brings up some additional information, no image, and then of course if I tap on the New York Stock Exchange, it's going to give me information on the New York Stock Exchange. Now just remember that this happened to be a glossary term, so probably not the best thing to add a popover over, but just wanted to give you an idea of how you would lay this popover image, placeholder image on top of text, and that it still works. So that's a quick review of the popover effect in iBooks Author, and that concludes our lecture. Thanks.